welcome to our Morning Throners podcast.
I'm Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Kyle.
And we're the fucking Morning Throners. And welcome back to another episode of your favorite Song of Ice and Fire podcast. We are your Morning Throners. Got Danny one on deck. Gentlemen, what'd you think?
Danny, we're back. Off on the other side of the world. All by herself.
Always good to get a good Danny chapter in there.
Back to nothing, baby. Yeah.
Her whole last book was pretty rough, I think. But
I guess the dragons are kind of doing some stuff now, at least, right? Like, they're going to be interesting.
Starting to get you exciting for another year from now.
The thing is, small dog is such like a vague size. Like, small dog, like I think like it's at least like 40 pounds. But then you have people who have small dogs that are actually like how big is your dog, Kyle? Like 6 pounds?
He's getting bigger as he gets older, but yeah, he's like 6 pounds. That's what he weighed.
Like, I don't think these guys are like 20 pounds if they're like play fighting and stuff like that. Like, I don't see nugget-sized dragons.
Well, they're big, but they're all wings and neck and tails, she said, and it's like real light.
Yeah, like their actual body, like they tuck their wings back and like look like a beagle almost. You know?
She says the size of a small dog though, but would weigh less than a small dog would weigh more.
I know, but it's a flying lizard, so you got to figure out birds have like hollowish bones, right? I'm assuming the dragons probably have something similar.
I guess like a snake. Basically, it's like a normal sized snake right now with wings.
Like a lizard.
I think there's a little bit of body to it. I think there's
like
they have like a rib cage and stuff. Like
so do snakes.
Yeah, I meant like an actual like it's gonna form off of the neck, and you're gonna be like, okay, that's where the chest is.
Okay. It's got not segmented, but its body is broken into zones. That's what you're trying to say.
Like a 4-foot snake with wings is what I'm seeing with this thing right now.
Why don't you just say a 4-foot lizard?
Because that's vaguer.
That's not vague.
It is vaguer. Lizard is like a category of a snake is a subset of lizard, which makes snake more.
No.
What do you mean? Is a salamander a lizard?
No.
Jeff, is a salamander a lizard?
I don't know.
Yeah, big time it is.
I would say that a salamander would be lizard-ish. I don't know. Maybe are they their own?
Salamanders are definitely lizards. Like Komodo dragon's a lizard.
All right, I'm Googling it because they have a lizard-like appearance. They're not a lizard.
What the heck is a lizard?
They're not fucking arguing. A lizard is a reptile, and it's a very specific thing.
What do you mean it's a specific thing?
There's got to be some specific quality. Like salamanders can, like, I don't know, breathe underwater. Or I don't. Like,
yeah, salamanders are
amphibians. I feel like Kyle's
making
making up this.
I'm not making up stuff. You guys are just idiots. I'm sorry.
What is lizard? Read me the definition of lizard.
Sorry to bring you into this joke.
I don't want to be considered an idiot because I didn't.
Innocent bystander, but
what's the definition of lizard? If you don't give it to me,
I'll Google it. I
don't
know what the definition of I couldn't tell you the definition of a dog, but I know what a dog is.
It basically says it's a long reptile with 4 legs.
Yeah. What else is a long reptile with 4 legs and wings? A dragon. I don't know why we gotta argue over this.
Okay, first off, it's something George is very clear about. Dragons only have 2 legs. George says there's no animal in the world that has 4 legs and wings. So its wings are its front legs. It can like walk with its front two wings.
Yeah.
But George makes it very like because a lot of dragons, like if you see pictures of medieval dragons, do have 4 legs and wings.
They're a dinosaur with wings.
And George is like, there is no animal in the world that has 4 legs and wings, so my dragons don't. They have 2 legs and wings. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
And on the front of those wings are little hands that they can walk on.
I mean, or like a bat. They don't have. Well, I guess the bats have little hands.
Can a bat walk?
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
They would probably walk like a bat then.
Oh man. We should start a science podcast, and we can kind of do the opposite because you'd come in fresh. I would tell you about these animals, and you'd be like,
"Wait." The thing is, I feel like at least we hopefully make the listeners feel better about themselves. They're like, "Man, these guys are so fucking stupid."
Oh boy.
At least I'm not that dumb. You know what I mean? Like, at least we're making our listeners feel better about themselves. Yeah. Like, at least I'm not as dumb as those 3.
All
right. Let's jump in. So the dragons are dog sized. How big of a dog? They're between a golden retriever and a beagle. We'll settle on that.
I would say smaller than a beagle. Beagle's max is what I'm saying.
Nah, dude. Beagles are like a foot long. I'm saying like they at least have to have some size to them. Not just weight. They got to have some length to them too. That's what I'm saying. Retriever. Maybe not as heavy.
She says small dog.
Oh my God. Who cares?
It's Jack Russell Terrier then. He's a Jack Russell Terrier.
If you own a golden retriever, when you go to the store, you're buying either medium or large dog stuff. You know what I mean? Like when you buy stuff for dogs, it's normally like large, medium, or small dog.
All right, no one
Golden
cares.
Retriever is definitely in the medium or large.
Nobody
dog.
cares. Nobody cares. No. And when I say nobody cares, nobody
Jeff
cares.
was saying this is going to be a short podcast too.
Well,
We're
yeah,
already,
you
like,
just ruined it by talking 5 minutes about a dog size and if a lizard has a penis or not.
So we get another person out at sea.
All right, Danny's out
That's-
sailing around with her dragons, playing over the water, and the Dothraki are just going through it. But she loves it. She's been out here before.
Yep.
And we find a little bit of history. She's gone across the narrow sea 100 of times.
I think she has half 100, but yeah, lots of times.
Half 100. That's still a lot of times to sail back and forth.
Yeah, and I mean, even if it's 20, it's still kind of a decent amount by
Yeah.
13 or whatever she is now.
Exactly.
15.
And she just says how she's always enjoyed being on the water. Even thought one time she'd just become a sailor.
Yeah, but she snapped out of that real quick from the series. Gave her the one too.
Probably,
Yelled at her, told her she's a dragon, not a.
you are blood of the dragon with a little purple nurple twist.
Nah, I thought he like ripped her hair out of her head, twisted her hair in her scalp or something.
Yeah, he did something. I think he purple nurpled her earlier on. I was just a little callback.
Yeah. Here, so it starts with all that's happening. She's standing at the front of the ship. So they've been sailing for about 13 days, at least 13 days, maybe more. I get that because at one point she says 6 days into the voyage, they hit a storm. And then none of the Dothraki like that. And then
no
she says
wind.
they've been becalmed for 7 days. Yeah, so they're 6 plus 7, 13.
How long did the storm last? The storm could last a day or two.
Yeah, sure. So again, like 13 is the minimum. Probably a little more than that.
Yeah.
She's on. So she renamed these 3 ships at the end of the last chapter, right?
Yeah.
She renamed them after the dragons that Jorah talks about at the end.
Yeah.
3 dragons that took over Westeros: Balerion, Meraxes, Vhagar. She's on the ship Balerion, which she explains, I think, a little bit later. But basically, they're becalmed. The ship she's on has no way to move itself except for sails. The other 2 each have 200 oars each, so they're towing the big ship that she's on.
Uh-huh.
Slow
They're all big
going.
ships, but yeah, it's been slow going for the past 6 or so days.
Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of went through the beginning of everything that happened. So the Dothraki are not enjoying themselves. The Blood Riders want to act tough, but they're not. They're just kind of staying there wide-eyed. The handmaids are puking over the railing, and then everybody else, for the most part, is staying underneath the deck with their horses.
Pretending that it's not happening.
Yeah.
That's the best part. They're just down there like pretend like this isn't real.
And when the storm happened, they're just like crying and praying to survive.
The other thing is here, when you were kind of talking about it, she likes the sea. She said she wasn't afraid of the storm because they call me Daenerys Stormborn.
She's Stormborn. It's her name. That's like being called Jeffrey of High Heights and being scared of heights. Like, I don't.
Yeah, high places. So, but my thing was like, who calls her that? Like, nobody ever calls her this except for herself, maybe. Like, nobody in Westeros is talking about her.
But this is Viserys or whatever, right? He probably drilled this into her, right? You are Daenerys.
Yeah, I guess that's where this comes
Stormborn.
from. Yeah.
Like
Nobody's really talked about her in the West except for Robert, and he just kind of he said like
the girl,
the Targaryen whore, you know, like
yeah. Oh, yeah. Even worse than the girl.
like if anyone ever like talked about the legend of Daenerys, they probably would call her Stormborn, but I don't know. It doesn't sound like that's gonna. That would also be like probably treason, like talking about them right now in this climate.
Exactly, like talking her up. Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, so that's what she says, and she says that the storm that happened, and I guess this is all just from Viserys, like you said, was so brutal that it pulled the gargoyles off the face of Dragonstone's towers and destroyed her father's entire fleet. Which, I mean, I guess is very possible. Like especially like in medieval times, like you got a bunch of, especially like a fleet all at once. Like if you're in the middle of a war, which they were, right there in the middle of the Robert's Rebellion.
Yeah,
like you have all your ships like close together, and then especially like in a bay, and then the storm comes through and smash them against each other,
and the rocks and everything. Yeah,
and gargoyles are flying off the castle out into the sea. Like, yeah,
I was just say I don't know if I imagine if I trust the gargoyles.
Volkswagen-sized rocks,
but
flying out there. Yeah, so she's born in this thing. She's like, I'm not afraid of no storms. She thinks about the hired knives a little bit.
Yeah, we'll hit on that. I think the biggest thing of this beginning is like a little bit of her relationship with Viserys. It's been like a year now since he's been gone, or half a year.
Yeah, probably. I can check.
And she's like, oh, he was really stupid, and if he was just patient, this could have been him. But he wasn't, but she misses him a little bit.
I mean, it's kind of to be expected, right? Like, it's still her brother to some degree, and
her only companion for the first 14 years of her life.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we get to meet the captain of the ship. Nelson, unless you have anything else.
No, you're right. It's been about a year since he died.
Yeah. So Captain Grolio comes up.
Another Pentoshi, like Illyrio, not as fat, a little bit older, I think, right? In service to Illyrio. Maybe not older, but she mentions he's old.
It does say old Pentoshi.
Yeah.
He's in service to Illyrio. Again, like all three of these ships are owned by Illyrio. Yeah, at first he was a little hesitant of the dragons, not a big fan.
Made her lock him up. They were screaming.
It's kind of like making me lock up Luca. Like, he just gives me the puppy dog eyes and you let him out. So she lets him out. But ever since then, like, he's kind of cool with it. They only have the one small fire, easy to put out, and basically none of the ships are just clear rats now.
And they just got buckets of water just hanging from the mast to make sure.
Yeah, there's like 50 buckets hanging everywhere just in case.
And I mean, she even gets into it, right? Like they're like, these are kind of, maybe they're not our dragons now, but like we're fucking traveling with dragons, or like people become in all of this, right? Like it's like I'm on this boat that's got this shit going on, right?
Like these guys are gonna tell their grandchildren about this.
Yeah.
Even the guys bent over the oars, they're gonna be telling their grandchildren about this. Like, oh, one time I rode these dragons. These dragons that can fly, but I rode them anyway.
I took a funny note of this just because Nelson and I, as head coach, used to always, I don't know if he used to say it back when we were players or not, but it's definitely a big point now of the program is you're either our football team or you're the football team. Like, they want to be associated with the Dragons now. So it's like, oh, like, when they got on the ship, they're probably like, oh, the Dragons. Oh, the Dragons will burn the ship down. The Dragons will blah, blah, blah. The Dragons eat all our food. And now it's like, oh, our Dragons are on the ship. Our Dragons are flying around.
You're saying, like, what everyone on campus who doesn't play football.
Yeah.
You want people who aren't players to be proud of the team.
You want people to say our. You want to be associated with them. And that's definitely what everybody is like, oh, those Dragons are, they're cool. Like, we're with the Dragons now.
Exactly. It is pretty sweet too. And like, again, we talked about it. They're too small to really do anything. But like, if they were a little bit bigger, like, and a pirate ship shows up and you got like some dragons overhead, the pirate ship might be like, you know what? Let's not fuck with those guys. The guys that have dragons.
Do you think the word's like completely out yet? Like everywhere?
No, definitely not everywhere.
I mean, they don't know in Westeros, really.
Do they not? I thought it was at least rumored that she.
No.
There might have been a rumor or two, but yeah, definitely. Like, I don't know.
If it was a rumor, it was like one sentence and never mentioned again. It never played into anybody's thoughts. Tyrion didn't really go into it. Like,
I don't remember. So I mean, maybe like you just sailing by and then you're like, holy shit, what's that? Those three things flying around that look like small dogs. That would freak you out for sure.
Yeah.
So Dany does think about these dragons being her actual children, like, and if the Meiji was true, they're gonna be her only ones.
You know what I was thinking though, because she thinks about Mir Mazdor a lot in this chapter.
Two, 3 times.
So what Mir Mazdor says is like, oh, you'll never, like, your womb will quicken again when the sun rises in the west and when seas go dry and like all these like weird things like that. Like she'll just know that won't happen when pigs fly, basically. But that happens. She says that before the dragons are hatched. The dragons are hatched when Miri dies. So like, Miri says you're never going to have dragons or never going to have kids.
I mean, she's really just taking these on as kids. Like, she didn't birth these kids.
I was going to say, are you really saying that you're trying to make the claim?
Dany counts them. Dany's counting them.
Yeah, but she's like, these are my children now.
I can have an ant crawling on my shin right now. Do I count that as my son? No.
Well, right now, she's literally saying they're the only kids I'll ever have. And I'm like, well, if you actually count them as your kids, that breaks a prophecy. Like, you could have more kids in the same fashion that you had these kids, air quotes.
Well, I
kids.
think that's the point. Like, Mir Mazdor isn't saying that she's going to adopt things along the way.
But she could. What if she stumbled on 3 more dragon eggs? Dany could have 3 more kids.
Okay, she could.
It's not an egg in her womb is basically what I'm saying is.
You're right, because Mir Mazdor is literal, like, your womb won't quicken, I think, or something like his, how she puts it.
No. I think the point, though, is that she is claiming things as children because she cannot have them the other way.
Right,
it's pretty much what that is saying.
Yeah.
Like, these are my children now. These are going to be my everything. I have no other option.
Jorah's my daddy. These are my children.
Ooh, I don't know.
She gets into what they look like a little bit here. Sirion is cream and gold. Right?
Yep.
Rhaegal is green and bronze, summer and fall.
Yep.
And those two are like fighting each other and
play fight, little doggy fights.
Kind of, playing around, ring around the rosy, dog fighting.
She gets into like some dragon hunting tactics. She's noticed they like to get in between the enemy and the sun and then dive straight down. And then when they do, like when they play fight, they like go into the water. Right?
Yeah,
They like
cool.
actually go into the water and splash back out, and like the water steams off them. But how does the water like? How are they hot enough that it steams off them out there? But then Danny can like cuddle with. I mean, I guess Danny's
a little bit different. Danny jumped
she's
in
different.
fire with
Nothing
them.
hurts her. Yeah.
It doesn't say everybody else is.
But Erie's like in bed with her. Like Erie's like fucking sweating her. You know what I mean? On their covers.
Probably that's why they're all naked. Cause
I mean, I don't think the dragons sleep with them, but you know what I mean.
yeah, no, I don't think they do either. Yeah, you don't hear of other people touching them, so they must. I mean, if they're steaming off, they're hot as shit, which is pretty wild.
But the dragons are playing a lot. But Drogo's never with them.
Except for one.
Drogon's just black, right?
Yeah, black with red, I think, or black with crimson.
Yep.
But he's just always out hunting. He's always hungry.
He's just
gonna be
bored.
big.
He's just like the teenager that has two siblings. You know, they're playing Legos, and the teenager like, I have my car. I'm driving out off this place.
He's out at the park looking for honeys or flying fish out
Flying
miles
fish.
in front, miles behind fishing. Because that's pretty much the big difference. Is not even big. Drogon is slightly bigger than the other two because he spends more time hunting than he does playing. Danny says he's always hungry. So I think this is when Jorah comes up. He's like, Drogon lost. She's like, we're the fucking ones that are lost. He doesn't like this slow going any more than I do. So she also mentions that Drogon was the first one to fly above the water, the first one to go ship to ship. Yeah, and the first one to kill. Like there she says she's just snatching flying fish. So she starts asking questions about the dragon because she doesn't know much. She's like, how big will they get? And he's like, gives a fake answer.
There's tales that they're big enough to grab a kraken out of the ocean.
Jorah doesn't know shit. Jorah's like, I feel like you watch these like political people answer questions, and they just like answer with nothing, right? It's like, oh, we put it in
it's just hearsay, just whatever he heard.
But I don't know.
Because he's like, they say this. And she's like, oh, that's crazy. And he's like, well, it's probably not true, though. It's pretty much happens.
Well, and when would he have ever seen a dragon, though, right?
Well,
I mean, if he was in King's Landing, you see the skulls, and then you could, I don't know, infer from there.
Maybe.
Like Arya saw the skulls.
Yeah, but Arya like was snuck down there. Ned didn't. That wasn't like the first thing Ned did.
If you were there before 16 years ago, they were just in the throne room, though.
Okay.
Well, I mean, that's what Whitebeard says.
Yeah.
It's a little bit. Jorah almost talks about them. Jorah almost talks about them like they weren't real. Like, oh, like those dragons were. Like they were like the dinosaurs, you know?
I think he just doesn't really know shit about them, and he doesn't want to say like too confidently about anything.
Well, let's just say like, hey, well they've been as big as this, and they've been as small as the little one. Like he knew that the little ones were in the dragon pit and they didn't grow. Like he knew that.
Yeah.
That's common knowledge.
Yeah, I agree. But basically what he says is they can. She asks how old they can be, and he says that they can live to be 1,000 years old. Or no, I guess he just said that's another story. And she's like, well, how long do they live?
Jorah was worthless in this conversation.
He says longer than us, pretty much, right? He said, except the main ones in town were the House Targaryens, and those were bred to die, essentially.
So this is an important point because, like, the ones that they had in Westeros, kind of like the ones that Jorah would know about, they didn't like die of old age. Is basically what he's saying.
Killed in war.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's like the ones that I know about, like we know when they hatched and then we know when they died, but they died by a big ass spear through the eye, or like getting killed by another dragon or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's not like he doesn't know. Like the answer of like how long would they live if you just let them live? They don't know that answer.
It's kind of weird though. Like I think he would have read about Balerion, right? Like.
So this is weird. I feel like somewhere, and maybe already, we've heard that Balerion was 1,000 years old. I think that might be why Jorah says this, is because in like book 1, George didn't know how.
The next thing that happens here is Whitebeard says Balerion the Black Dread was 200 years old when he died.
Exactly. So I think what happened was in book 1, whenever George said that, because I think already George has said that the Black Dread was over 1,000 years old. Like I think we've heard that in one of the first 2 books. And I think what this chapter is trying to do is
breaking down the rumor.
Like, yeah, here's some rumors that I've heard, right? Because maybe it was like somebody in like a Ned chapter, like in the North, you know what I mean, who said that, you know what I mean? So now we have Jorah, like, hey, here's what us Northmen know about dragons, because we were far away, we don't know that. We don't know shit.
And then
and he's like, hey, here's some stuff, but those are just stories. Don't take any. Like, don't believe that. And Jorah even says that, like, this is a story. I'm not sure.
It's only a tale, Khaleesi, yeah.
And then later, when Whitebeard starts talking, he seems like pretty confident in the stuff he's saying.
He's dropping knowledge. Like,
I think it's a way for George to be like, hey, Yeah, I know I said 1,000 years in book 1, but that
This
was
is
just a
actually-
story.
this is
Whoever
actually
said
what
that
I
didn't
mean.
really know. Yeah, that's my guess, yeah.
Okay.
He's actually trying to nail some of the stuff down here.
Yeah. All right. So Whitebeard comes out. It's like, oh, Valerian lived to be 200, and they don't stop growing unless if they have food and freedom.
Yep.
And that kind of gets her attention, which it should, because she's trying to ride these motherfuckers.
What do you mean freedom?
Yeah, and this is where we talk about the dragon pit. He's like,
Mhm.
they basically made a big house for the dragons, but everything that was in there didn't grow as big.
And it was pretty big, right? I mean, it's still like
It's massive, but it was just not enough.
It's just weird. I guess like they probably put them in stalls, right? So like once they were in a stall,
I don't know what you do that like it just doesn't burst out. Like it has to be like really thick or something
Let's-
like that.
well,
And like
Cement dome.
well, like I think you know a little bit more than you're willing to say right now. Now it's like
I don't know.
the biggest ones weren't actually in there. One,
I don't think you'd put them in stalls. If anything, I would imagine it like cubbies, right? I would make a bunch of cubbies, like a bunch of cave systems.
well, either way, it's still a stall. What?
Yeah.
If they
Yeah,
have to
that's what he
fly,
meant.
if they have to climb up to their stall, it's
Sure.
still.
What I mean is, I don't think there's anybody that's like, okay, dragon, come with me. I'm going to put you in and cage you in.
I don't know
Like, I
about
think
that.
it was like the dragons are coming and going pretty freely. Like I don't think anyone's like really putting them in a spot.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think we know more than that, Nelson.
I might be wrong. You
We've,
might be right.
we've seen the dragon pit portrayed in the House of Dragon.
Well, we've seen it in House of Dragon, but I don't think that relates to the books necessarily.
Well, you would know more than me, but
Like here, they say that the doors were big enough for 30 men to ride through side
next
by
to each
side.
other. Yeah.
I don't think it's big in House of Dragon. I don't think it's that big in House of Dragon.
who cares? The one in the show.
You're just saying.
Let's not get into the show.
I'm just saying, if you're saying because it looks like this in the show, that's probably what it looks like in the books. And I'm saying that's
I'm not
we just
saying
know.
anything about the actual dragon pit. I'm saying about how they were being tended to.
Okay. Okay.
Was very much so. I'm done riding my dragon. Let me put you into your stall type of behavior.
I will say though, I'm pretty sure a lot of that isn't spelled out anywhere in the books, and they had to figure out something for the show.
Whatever.
But okay, we're wasting time.
What are they doing? Just putting them in this big open room and saying, "All right, fuck around in here."
That's kind of how I pictured it. Yeah.
I know what you're saying, Nelson. Maybe they don't have an assigned stall, but all the stalls are open and they kind of fly back and forth. Maybe they do roost somewhere. Like, who knows?
Yeah, but pretty much all they do is like open the doors and let them in and out. That's pretty much all they do. Is kind of how I see
I
it.
don't think so.
But I'm not sure.
But if people are pulling specific ones in and out, like, how do you do that?
I would assume if you're bonded, then if you show up and you're like, "Hey, come here," but yeah, I don't know.
True. I don't know.
I will say to Jeff's point, Jeff is right, somewhat right, must be more right than I'm giving him credit
Always
for,
right.
because the one
Always
thing we
right.
know is that there were dragon keepers, right? There were
Thank
like
you.
some people who like
That was their
worked,
job.
That was their job, is they like worked in there, like kind of like stable hands.
Yeah.
So there was more than just like, and maybe they were just opening and shutting the doors, but there must have been like something going on there.
All right. Jordan, the biggest thing to learn, I guess we're learning some shit. I mean, it's kind of interesting what Whitebeard's dropping knowledge on. But Jordan just doesn't care for him. He's kind of like side-eyeing him the whole time. Even gives some like snide remarks back.
How profound, yeah. Because he said, we're talking about the freedom thing, and Whitebeard is saying like, yeah, if you like let them out in the open, they'll grow as big as they want. And Jorah's like, that's bullshit. I've known big men born in hovels and dwarfs.
Pretty
Boarding
stupid.
castles.
Pretty stupid
Yeah.
comment by Jorah here.
It is really dumb.
Jorah's just doing what I do in the podcast, just playing devil's advocate to be a dick.
Yeah, it's just he's just arguing to argue.
Yeah.
He's got to know animals that get bigger based on their environment, right? Like,
Is that a thing? Is that a real thing?
for sure, like crocodiles and stuff.
It is true.
I feel like
And crocodiles are true. Like you can keep, because I just know this because of the swamp boat ride. Like the guy had a pet alligator that was only like 1.5 feet long, and he was like, if you keep it at like, yeah, it pretty much grows to the tank that you have it in or whatever.
But people think of that about those pigs, and they wind up with a 200 fucking pound pig.
Yeah. There's no such thing as a mini pig. Maybe there's no such thing as a mini croc. I don't know.
I think Kyle's right on that.
I feel like there's definitely fish and things like that will do it.
I feel like there's definitely animals like sharks and shit that can just like never die, right? And they'll just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger as long as they're eating. I don't know if sharks are one of them, but like sea animals and reptiles, like crocs are probably one of them.
There's definitely some very old sharks. I don't know that they don't ever die.
Sea
but-
turtles, don't sea turtles get like tortoises just get huge?
I was gonna say sea turtles or like a tortoise. Like a tortoise is living to, I don't know, like 100+ years. You know?
Like people stop getting big at like humans stop gaining size at like what?
A quarter of their life now. Height, at least. We're all getting a little wider every day.
Yeah.
Uh,
Maybe a little shorter too.
So he's like, how do you know so much about this? And he's like, I served in King's Landing. And he was able to walk through the skulls room, I guess. At some point, he saw the skulls.
Yeah, because he's old man.
And then Danny's like, she just starts going in like with some questions about her family. He's like, did you get to meet my dad?
My dad? Yeah.
And he didn't say much, but yeah. And then she's like, was he kind? And he was like, often.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Occasionally. Was he the Mad King? Is that his name?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because she like laughs at the answer, like, "Oh wait, so he actually was mad?" Or
Well,
like
she tells him like speak freely, and he's like, well, he could be harsh with the people he thought was his enemies.
yeah, and maybe she was like, okay, like maybe he was just disciplining for the most part, like.
And she says, a wise man doesn't make enemies of the king. Did you know my brother too? And his answer was like, no one ever knew Prince Rhaegar. But he did see him fighting Torny, and he heard him play his strings. And Jorah's like, yeah, you and fucking everybody else at like how many different harvests, or feasts, or balls, whatever. He's like, now you're going to claim to the squire for him. He's like, I can't make that claim. Miles Mouton was his squire, and Richard Lonmouth after him. He knighted each of them. They remained his friends. He was also friends with John Connington. They say Lord Connington. His name's John Connington. And his oldest friend was Sir Arthur Dane, who I think is the only one of these guys who we've heard before.
The Sword of the Morning.
And Danny's heard before too.
So I do like think this lends a lot of credence to Whitebeard, right? Like at least in the sense that he knows what he's talking about.
I mean, he either actually lived this or he just like found the book written on Targaryens and.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like there's just some people that are like geeked up about it. Like he was just a guy who likes knights, like Egg, right? When in Duncan Egg is like
studied
knows all the
every
knights.
yeah.
Again, he's highborn, so it makes sense. But like he knows all the different knights and squires. I assume there's just people like that. Just like there's people who love sports nowadays.
Well, I'm just bringing it up because of the whole Jorah side of things later, I guess, right? Like, and I didn't reread it earlier. I read the chapter and I was done. But like, so like this, a lot of this it's not coming across as kind of like being super braggy, like, right? Like Jorah seems to think like, oh yeah, you're just fucking pumping your own tires here. But like he's kind of just giving us information, at least that's how I'm feeling.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of jealousy too. Like Jorah's like, he's
for sure.
Like he's talking to her now. One, he doesn't probably want anybody else to counsel her. He's kind of built like that, and it's on a topic that he really knows nothing about. So he's like, fuck, I can't even help her.
I think Jorah's a creep. Right, I mean, we like Jorah.
Huge creep.
He's 100% a creep, especially at the end of this chapter.
He's not a bad guy, but he's a big creep. Danny's 14, and he's like super, super attracted for her, and cannot control himself.
Overly protective.
And I think you guys are right. Like the problem he has with Whitebeard and Belwas and like everybody else is like he's not the only one like giving her counsel anymore.
Well, I don't think Belwas is giving her counsel.
Yeah, but
Whitebeard is conversing with her and about shit that she wants to hear. Like they're gonna. Yeah. She seems to like this convo. If Jorah didn't be like, oh, you don't trust them, like she probably continues to go back and like, oh, tell me about a turning that you saw, or like she's going to continue to talk to him.
And that's the problem is Jorah saw her developing another relationship with somebody else, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I think we're all on the same page there.
Yep.
Yeah. So they end up talking about Rhaegar actually being. Sorry.
Hang on, Arthur Dane. You said we heard about him before.
Yep.
When did we hear about him?
Nelson's going to have to bring that one up.
So he is in. Ned has that dream.
Okay. The tower.
Tower fallen. Yeah, and Arthur Dane's in the dream. He's one of the Kingsguard.
Okay.
Right, so he was a Kingsguard to Aerys, which is kind of why he's friends with Rhaegar. Rhaegar wasn't Kingsguard, but he's like the prince, Kingsguard, right? They're friends. So
he might even like had to look after him, right? Like,
yeah. And hold on, guys. I think I can go see what that quote is. I'm not going to read the whole dream, but
we have this web of connected information. We might as well use it, right?
Nelson does all this time.
Where it's finally paying off. He did all this work, and now it's going to pay off.
Yeah. They were 7 facing 3 in the dream as it had been in life. Yet these were no ordinary 3. They waited before the round tower, the red mountains of Dorne at their backs, with their white cloaks blowing in the wind. And these were no shadows. Their faces burned clear even now. Sir Arthur Dane, the sword of the morning, he had a smile on his lips. The hilt of that great sword Dawn poked up over his right shoulder. Sir Oswald Went was on a knee, sharpening his blade with a whetstone across his white enameled helm. The black bat of his house spread its wings Between them stood fierce old Sir Geralt Hightower, the White Bull, the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard.
Nothing about what happened after the fight or anything? Dane die or live? What happened?
Ned's wraith moves up beside him with shadow, sword, and hand. It's because all the 7 that were with Ned, he couldn't see their face. They were just like shadow wraiths.
They were just ghostly, yeah.
They were 7 against 3, and now it begins, said Sir Arthur Dane, the Sword of the Morning. He unsheathed Dawn and held it with both hands. The blade was pale as milk glass, alive with light. No, Ned said with sadness in his voice. Now it ends. As they came together in a rush of steel and shadow, he could hear Lyanna screaming. Eddard, she called. A storm of rose petals blew across the bloody streaked sky, as blue as the eyes of death. Lord Eddard, Lyanna called. I promise, he whispered. Lie, I promise. Lord Eddard, a man echoed from the dark. Groaning, Eddard Stark opened his eyes. Moonlight streamed through the tall windows of the Tower of the Hand. Lord Eddard. A shadow stood over the bed. Ned wakes to see Vaon Poole standing over him.
So we don't get a conclusion on...
They rush towards each other, yep.
Yeah.
That's
obviously we know Ned is alive, so if that's an actual event...
Yeah, exactly.
That's our clue, I guess.
Ned didn't die there.
Ned lives.
Yeah, Ned lived, yeah, 100%. Through that event.
Yep.
All right, so we start to talk now about how Rhaegar, about him being a warrior. And
his legacy, yeah. Somebody finally...
Not being a warrior.
Yeah.
Not being a warrior.
Well, both. Yeah, you're right, both.
What is he about to say when he says... The old a warrior without peer, ...
So earlier, Danny had said that Viserys used to talk about the Sword of the Morning when Whitebeard had said, "Oh, here's Rhaegar had these 2 squires, and he was friends with Lord Connington, and Sir Arthur Dane is his oldest friend." And Danny's like, "Oh, I know that name, the Sword of the Morning." Viserys used to talk about how he was Rhaegar's only equal, and Whitebeard's like, "I'm not gonna. It's not my place to question princes," but basically he doesn't agree with that. So then later when he said whatever you said, a warrior without peer, is because he was his only peer. Those were the only 2.
Yeah, right. So I thought when they meant that, it was like, oh, they used to just like be friends. Like they were friends. Like they would, I don't know, maybe train together. Like
I think it just means like nobody was on par with him.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Those are fine words, but words win no battles, is what he says.
Well, and he also gives like a really good point though as well. Like anything can fucking happen. Like I've seen the best die. Essentially, that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Like it can happen. So like he's not. You're right that he kind of comes across as saying like, Rhaegar might not have been as good as you've heard, but at the same time he's also like just discounts that and like is like there's really no best swordsman because like today he's the best. Next week he slips on some mud and goes down and loses the tournament.
What I'm thinking too is it's one of the things where and I know it happens in the show and you saw at least the first season, but I think it's in the books too. Robert in season 1, book 1, Robert's like trying to join the tournament, right? During the Hands tourney. He like wants to go out.
Yeah.
Right. And Ned says, no, everyone would let you win because you're the king. No one's going to risk like hurting the king.
Yeah, hurting you. What about Rhaegar? Yeah.
Like I don't think that's 100% true with the prince, right? I think it's more like, yeah, there is going to be some people who just like highborn people who are like on par with him are going to fight for him. But like a hedge knight's just going to throw, right? Like a hedge knight who could beat him.
I think most people are going to throw.
I think it's the same type of thing. So in what he's saying, and I don't know if this is exactly what Whitebeard's saying, but like that quote was like, yeah, you'll win one tourney, lose another one. Rhaegar probably won a lot more tourneys than maybe he would have if he was just a nobody. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And then he even throws a little dig back at Jorah.
Yeah, in that quote there. When he's talking about anything that could change the tide of a tourney, he says, or a lady's favor knotted around an arm. Mormont's face darkened. Be careful what you say, old man.
Dun, dun, dun.
And Danny then goes into thinking like, oh, we've heard about this. Jorah basically had a second wife who was like really expensive, high taste, but he kind of like won her over at this tournament that he won with her favor knotted around his arm. And Whitebeard was there for this and saw this.
Give him a little jab. Yeah, like...
Well, the thing is, I don't think he knows that... Like, he probably knows it ended badly because they're not together now.
Oh, he definitely knows.
Jorah, yeah.
100%.
Okay, so it was a jab. I was thinking maybe it's not a jab. Maybe he was like, Jorah, you should know this, right? You won a tournament out of your league because of some fluke, right? Happenstance. He's basically like happenstance as far as anything to happen.
Yeah.
You should know this. You were a victim of it once. But you might be right. He might also be trying to do a jab. I took it as like honest ignorance.
He was jabbing, honestly, I think.
He was jabbing and making a point.
I think he also is kind of proving that he knows things, like even beyond that, right? Like he's like, I even know about you, Jorah. Like I know all this stuff. Like,
Yeah.
and like I said, this is kind of me reacting to Jorah's later conversation. He's kind of proving that he knows what he's talking about.
I think that part of what raises his suspicions of him too. They're like,
True.
Yeah, he knows
what
a
the
lot.
fuck?
Yeah. This dude was well connected at some point, at least.
No, in what part of the timeline was Jorah exiled? Before or after the war?
After, I think. After Robert's rebellion. Because
Okay.
he fought in the...
He fought for Robert
at
and
Pike.
that.
He
Okay.
fought at Pike
Right. Okay.
in the Greyjoy Rebellion. So it must have been after that, which was 9 years before the book started. So sometime between 9 years and the start of the book.
All right. So the next part of this Rhaegar combo about him as a warrior is kind of an old tale. And Jorah's like, this is where Whitebeard's like, Jorah probably knows this too. And she's like, oh no, you tell me. She's probably just tired of hearing Jorah after this 2 years. Like, all right, I need a new voice.
Even no new voice. I think at the same time, it's kind of like I want to hear your version of it. As well, right? Like, I mean, maybe you'll give me some different information.
So Dany asked him about Rhaegar, and the old man considered a moment.
Able, that above all, determined, deliberate, dutiful, single-minded. There is a tale told of him, but doubtless Sir Jorah knows it as well.
I would hear it from you.
As you wish. As a young boy, the Prince of Dragonstone was bookish, to a fault. He was reading so early that men said Queen Rhaella must have swallowed some books in a candle whilst he was in her womb. Rhaegar took no interest in the play of other children. The maesters were awed by his wits. But his father's knights were just sourly that Baelor the Blessed had been born again. Until one day, Prince Rhaegar found something in his scrolls that changed him. No one knows what it might have been, only that the boy suddenly appeared early one morning in the yard as the knights were donning their steel. He walked up to, Sir Willem Derry, the master-at-arms, and said, I will require sword and armor. It seems I must be a warrior.
And he was.
You like my Whitebeard voice?
I feel like you listened to the audiobook and took that one for your own. Is that what happened?
I have listened to the audiobook. I don't know if that's what it sounds like.
It felt very like in depth and researched, so it felt like you knew this guy. And so
What I noticed was in the audiobook, when he does Dolores Ed, he does like a bunch of like
Southern accent
Like-
about how Willie takes a shit on a stick and
no, he adds in words. Like I was
Okay,
saying,
hemming
and
and
stuff.
hawing and
yeah,
stuff,
like,
yeah.
exactly, like little words like that. And I was like, I noticed in some of the recent chapters too, he does it, and like other people, like older people, will just like, like think for a second.
because
when
all
they're,
old
like,
people
talking.
do that.
I don't know.
No, it was good. Good job, Dust.
fucking old people. No, it's good.
Right.
Liked
Strong Belwas wakes up and he needs brekkie. So
Bill was hungry.
I love this.
Me hungry now.
Do you see why I love this guy, Kyle? It doesn't take long to see why I love this guy.
Feed me. No, I immediately was confused as to why you loved him so much. This guy seems like a douche.
I need food.
He acts like a child sometimes too.
Yeah. He's a clown, man.
Yeah. All right. He goes off. Jorah's like, hey, let's not listen to this guy. He's playing you false. He knows way
Yeah.
too much. He's way too old to be a squire, and he's too well spoken. So fuck this guy.
Danny's been reading Ruling for Dummies, though, and she hits him with a great quote from some book. One voice may speak ye false, but in many, there's always truth to be found. Like, what books is Danny been reading? Where's she getting these books?
Yeah, that was a good question. How did she learn to read?
Well, I think Jorah actually gave her books, like, on her wedding
Okay.
day. Like,
Yeah, she gave like the rulers of the
it's like Histories
like
of Westeros, not like Ruling 101.
No, I'm pretty sure one was all about the rulers of Westeros. Like literally,
Yeah,
like
this could have been like a quote from a king or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, to be fair, I know I just spent a long time kind of saying Jorah's at the end is pretty obviously out of his league, but I mean, he does make some good points as well. Like, this dude is too old to be a squire, like that Squire Dallbridge, RIP. We know that there are some old squires, but at the same time, this dude, again, he's kind of like you've already seen some attempts on your life. You've already experienced some of this deceit. Like, I mean, maybe these guys aren't immediately out to hurt you, but they could be taking you back to Illyria, who's got a trap set. Is really where he's at.
Yeah, and I think we were kind of saying at the beginning, Jorah's definitely a creep, but he's not a bad guy, right? Like, he's grooming this 14-year-old girl for sure, but for the most part, he has like her, and he's trying to look out for her. Like, he doesn't want anything bad to happen to her, right? And maybe that's a product of him being a creep, but he does have her best intentions, except for maybe their relationship at heart, right? So, and you're right, like, basically all of book 2, he's like, yo, we're wasting our time in cars, and they pretty much were wasting their time in cars. So,
but at the same time, like, there comes a point where that, like, I must keep you safe at all costs, and I'm gonna hide you from the world. Like, that's abusive, like, and not somebody's best interest.
Sure, super groomy.
Yeah, and like I said, not in the best interest. You couldn't even make that argument. But at the same time, like, I know where you're coming from. Like, he's trying to steer her to safety, or at least to be skeptical.
Yeah.
And to the point Danny makes, I don't know if she makes it here or later, but she's like, I need people. Like, if we're gonna do a background check on every person I bring into this place, like, we're not getting very far.
Jorah is right though that so far she has just been like trusting everybody. Pyatt, sure. Zaro, sure.
I don't know if
Who'd she say no to?
that doesn't mean she trusted them.
Sure. Yeah, agreed. I'm not. And again, I'm just playing devil's advocate for the sake of it a little bit here.
Sure.
She did just kind of follow along with a lot of them.
I mean, like, yeah, all right, come in the car. Really, she had no fucking choice but to follow Zara, or they're dying.
Yeah, and what we're talking about is kind of the next, what she goes through right here. She starts going through the list of people in her mind who are enemies or on the fence, right? So first thing she thinks, like, I got no friends in Westeros, hired knives. They already tried to poison me once.
The wine, right?
Yeah, the wine.
Yeah.
Then at the warlocks from Karth, they don't like me.
Well, not after
Wonder why.
Drogon burned more than half of them.
And ate the heart or whatever. Like, I feel like that heart had to be like something important to them.
Power source or something.
Yeah.
The Dothraki don't like me, except for the few that I wiggled onto this boat. The rest of them, like most of Drogo's Kalas are out there.
Yeah. When they were all like his good fighters too, right? Like that was like the cream of the crop, and she's got the remnants.
Yeah, and I don't have a map, but like if they go with the overland decision, that's got to be a problem.
It's gonna run them right through everything. Yeah.
Yeah, the Dothraki are like basically everywhere on that land mass.
Yeah, I mean, there's like bigger armies of them than we've heard of any army yet, right? Like,
yeah. Then she thinks of even Zaro. She's not sure like what terms they left on. Basically, they weren't on great standing because he had taken everything from her. He's basically like, get out of my house, was the last Dany chapter we had. And that's where she happened to find these people who were just trying to give away these ships to her. So she's like, yeah, I don't know if he's my friend. Like, we were never like really enemies, but we didn't leave on great terms. And the last one is the lady in the math,
Quaithy.
Is she an enemy or just a dangerous friend?
Oh, who the fuck is she? She's a weirdo is what she is.
Yeah, we know three things about her, right?
Yeah. She thinks, Jorah saved me from the wine. Whitebeard saved me from the poison, like the sorrowful men with the Manticore. Maybe Belwas will be the one that saves me next. He's huge enough with arms like small trees and a great curved axe so sharp he might shave with it, and the unlikely event of hair sprouting from those smooth brown cheeks.
So
my boy,
he just doesn't have hair,
cheeks.
right? Because he has no balls.
Yeah, he's a eunuch.
Do we know like when he lost his balls? Like if he got this, how did he get this strong? Right? Like,
well, they said he was bred and trained for the fighting pits of Moraine, is what Jorah says later. He's like, you can buy 100 more like him. So bred and trained, I'm guessing, as part of that process is when he lost his balls.
They got him really strong and then chopped his balls off. Like,
I guess you're right. Yeah, with balls, you probably don't. Without balls, you probably don't have as much testosterone, so you probably like it's harder to put on muscle or something.
Do you have any? I don't.
Well, girls can put on muscle and they don't have balls.
Yeah, but they have a different format.
Maybe they got some medieval PEDs.
I don't know.
My boy Belwas.
I don't know how it works. We have to do more study on eunuchs.
It's your kind of homework, bud.
Well, for the while, I thought they were chopping it all off, and then we just found out it was a twig, right?
Berries, just the berries, I think.
Just the berries.
Yeah.
Or is it all? I think it's up for debate still. We haven't gotten there yet.
It's a sometimes always always sometimes deal. Like always balls, sometimes twig.
And balls.
It's like a suit jacket. Always one, sometimes the other.
All right, but back to the point. She's like, I actually have 3 of the best protectors, but just not yet. And actually, these protectors are my dragons, but right now they're kind of a danger to us because they're bringing attention and they're not big enough to defend them. Maybe they are able to defend themselves, but not in a big quantity of people.
Yep. Then the wind picks up.
Oh,
Yep. They start kicking feet.
Fuck yeah.
holy shit! We got wind.
Belwas is dancing.
Everyone's fired up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then basically this is the whole day passes. They just sail all day. She goes down to her cabin later at night.
She's got the captain's quarters because even at sea, the queen rules all is what the captain says. So I mean, again, this kind of goes talk about points for or against Jorah. This kind of goes to Jorah's point here. Like these people are being too fucking nice to you. Like
I don't know. Give her the cabin. Sure, why not?
because it's his boat.
The second mate's room probably isn't bad.
I don't know, man. I feel like this is again. It's just people being too nice to her. She's nobody. She's some 14-year-old girl. Like
We'll see come next chapter when we find out how these orders get taken. So yeah, they're in there. They got Iri and Jikui. They're in there. They take turns sleeping with her too. She's naked. Everybody's naked. Jorah comes in. He's like, "Get the fuck out." They get out. She might show the dragon trick first. She's like, "Check this out." Throws the meat in the air, and then she says, "Dracarys," while it fell. Drogon moved quicker than a striking cobra. Flame roared from his mouth, orange and scarlet and black, searing the meat before it began to fall. As his sharp black teeth snapped shut around it, Rhaegal's head darted close, as if to steal the prize from his brother's jaws. But Drogon swallowed and screamed, and the smaller green dragon could only hiss in frustration.
It's pretty crazy that they can light it on fire and catch it like
It's got to be hot to cook it enough.
hot,
you know what I mean?
hot.
Like, I got to grill a piece of meat for a couple minutes.
For sure.
these are fantasy animals, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Just say it. It's got to be hot. It's hot fire.
Yeah, it is. It is very hot fire.
All right. So Jorah's like, all right, I need to talk to you.
He's like, that was pretty cool, but Dracarys, and then they just like somebody burned something, right?
It's like Scooby-Doo, like looking up at Shaggy, like, do I burn you now?
The Syrian shoots some fire at him. Yeah, Jorah steps back. Danny explains that it means dragon fire in High of Valyrian. Pretty cool. She wants to pick a word nobody would say.
Yeah, it's like don't say it too much, man.
Yeah. So this is when they kick the girls out, and then it just
It's just shit on Belwas and Whitebeard time.
yeah, what's the matter? And he's like, 3 things: Belwas, Whitebeard, and Illyrio. She's like, fuck, not again. And he's like, you're going to be betrayed 3 times. You heard it from the warlocks. Once for blood. She says once for blood, once for gold, once for love. You don't got to tell me. I remember that shit. That was creepy as fuck.
You weren't even in there, yeah.
I lived that shit too.
Miri was the first one. And Jorah's like, that means there's 2 left. And look, 2 fuckboys just showed up. I think it's troubling. And don't remember Robert said anybody lordship. And she's like, yeah, but he's not even alive anymore. Also, at one point, she reaches over and her tit slips out. Right?
Yeah. Just teasing him.
Teasing him. That's the stance you're gonna take.
No. I'm completely on Jorah being a creeper.
Okay.
But when you're in the presence of the creeper, the last thing you'd want to do is let a tit slip.
I mean, you should tell him to get out of here.
She does it twice, too, I think.
She should have gotten dressed before she allowed him to enter the room. And I'm not giving any fault to her. He is a weirdo.
But yeah, Tip falls out. Jorah probably gets a little excited by it. They keep talking. She's like, Robert's dead. Like, who cares about the lordship? Like, Joffrey's in charge now.
Oh, Joffrey's gonna pay his dad's debts. But then again, like, does he know this? Like, it was a Rob and Ned convo, and I guess the council could be like, "Hey, your dad wanted to kill this girl. You should go kill her too."
Or at the very least, the plans just might not have been called off.
True. Or word hasn't gotten to everybody that the plan's off.
Yeah, I mean, just like we've been in council chambers with Tyrion and in like book 2, no one really seems to care about this. Again, they had their hands full, but
bigger problems.
Yeah, but last we saw, no one really cared.
She kind of goes into some other things here, like, well, but what does any of that have to do with these 2 random dudes that are here? Like, they're not even Joffrey. Like, they don't seem connected to Joffrey. That guy, the old dude, doesn't even have a sword. Jorah's kind of like, yeah, but you saw, like, he's pretty dangerous with the staff. Like, he doesn't really need this sword.
Yeah, instead of that mana core, you're going to crush your throat.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, but he didn't. He crushed the mana core and saved my life.
And to Danny's point, like, they could have killed us at any point right now, right?
Yeah, which I think negates the next thing where he's like, oh, maybe he was working with the assassin to, like, be on your side. Like, yeah, but like, why would you not kill me when you have the opportunity?
Because maybe they need her alive wherever they're going.
Okay, Illyrio says bring her back alive. Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
And now now she trusts them because they saved her life.
I think she only had 1 dragon with her too. So like, if you're trying to go after Dany at this point, you're probably going after not for her, for her dragons. Right? Yeah. So okay.
I don't know. I feel like these are good points.
So, but what Jorah's basically, it's what Jorah's saying. He's like, they're working for Illyrio, and it's sus. Like,
Illyrio is sus. Like him in general. Like I've been around him. I know him. It sounds like Jorah even. I mean,
so I think one reason Jorah might be saying this, right, is we knew he was informing on Dany, Viserys and Dany, right? It seems kind of like when Dany started taking over is when Jorah kind of seems to. Again, we don't know. Maybe
I know you're saying stop playing the other side, Robert's side.
It seems like at one point he became loyal, right? And it's around the time that Viserys dies, Dany took over, right? Well, if he's not being loyal, is he doing that by himself, right? How did he get hooked up with Dany? He got hooked up with Dany via Illyrio at their wedding, right? So maybe he was working with Illyrio.
He knows he's shady,
because we saw Varys and Illyrio talking to each other down in that Arya chapter, right?
Yep.
So, and Varys is the one bringing the news from Jorah to the Small Council. So it makes sense if it's Jorah going to Illyrio, going to Varys, going to the Small Council. So he's already like, Illyrio is.
I know he's shady. I've been shady with him. Yeah, I've seen him be shady.
And he can't be like, I know this because I was the guy. But he can be like, these are the new me because I'm not doing it anymore. Is I think kind of what he's thinking.
Yeah, he's like, I know the job those guys are doing. Yeah, it used to be mine. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Danny doesn't really get this. She's like, he's a friend of House Targaryen and he's wealthy.
Yeah, he's helped us for so long. Like he's given us a place to stay when we were kids, and he was all about Viserys and his kingship and helping him get there.
Yeah.
And Jorah's like, all because he wanted to profit off of that too.
Jorah's got a great line. He says, he wasn't born wealthy, and in the world as I have seen it, no man grows rich by kindness. Which that's one of those lines. There's not many lines I feel like you can just take out of Game of Thrones and like put on a bumper sticker, but that's like one of them. No, in the world I've seen it, no man grows rich by kindness. Like,
is that true though? I don't know.
You don't get rich running a nonprofit.
I'm pretty sure you do get paid for running nonprofits.
Sure, but the people who get rich off running nonprofits are not great people.
Probably aren't great people. Yeah, Nelson's got a point. I mean, I think there comes a point, Jeff, where
you don't have to be fucking someone over to be getting rich. But being nice to people normally doesn't just give you money.
100%.
I'm just gonna throw out like Scrub Daddy on Shark Tank. He's rich. He didn't hurt anybody. He helped everybody.
What are you talking about?
The Scrub Daddy.
He did. He helped me get a Christmas present this year.
Just Google. You can Google the Scrub Daddy sponge Shark Tank.
All right, I'll check out this sponge.
You probably we have them at the house.
I don't know if it changed everyone's life.
It changed it. Everybody has bought it. I mean, it's the best sponge out there. Hurt nobody in the process of making his millions.
He didn't make that sponge thinking, I want to make every kitchen in the world better. He made that sponge thinking, I want to make a 50 cents and try for every single person I can get to buy this thing. You know what I mean?
And it hurt nobody. It really hurt nobody.
Did you buy one?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying it always cost. I bought some for Christmas presents this year. Gave him out as Christmas presents. It's a great gift.
He wasn't unkind for making his Scrub Daddy.
That's not what it says. It
what is the word? What's the word that was said?
No man grows rich by kindness. It's not you only grow rich by unkindness. It's not the same thing. It's not the contrapositive. Come on, Jeff. You should know your discrete math. Moving on.
No, I disagree.
No man grows rich by kindness. Just being kind will never make someone rich.
That's what I'm saying. I just gave you, like, we don't know that. Like, Scrub Daddy might have been kind making his sponge and he made millions. What are you talking about?
Why are we plugging this Scrub Daddy dude so much? Who gives a shit?
We're trying to get an ad.
Okay.
Oh, man. He says that the next thing that happens in the chapter is Jorah says that the warlock reminds her that the warlock said the second betrayal was for gold. And he's like, what does Illyrio like more than gold?
He really likes his Scrub Daddy.
So his skin, he likes to be alive. The last person that tried to betray me, look where it got her.
Yeah, burned. She's ashes now.
She gone.
And he's like, yeah, but that was different. Like, that was one person. You were in charge the whole time. Like,
she was literally your slave.
You were going to this house. Yeah, like, you were going to be outnumbered here.
Yeah, here you're going to his house.
And you have 4 of us. You got 4 people.
4 men, Khaleesi. You believe you know Illyrio and Pattis very well, yet you insist on surrounding yourself with men you do not know, like this puffed-up eunuch and the world's oldest squire. Take a lesson from Pyat Pri and Zarozo and Daxus. Not a bad point by Jorah. Like I said, he was kind of right all book 2.
That's what I was saying.
I think he really he really thought about his ammo before breaking into, or not breaking in, but coming in and having this conversation. He was going to make sure his cartridge was loaded with some ammo. And it gets to the point where, and I mentioned this earlier, like, well, how am I supposed to win the throne if I don't surround myself with people that can help me win it?
She does need people.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, you're right. That's why I got another plan.
We're going to get you some Unsullieds.
We're going to test them a little bit.
Yeah.
We're going to get some Unsullied, some badass warriors, and we're going to test these motherfuckers.
Yeah, see if you can change course. We're going to spend Illyrio's money without him knowing. But I mean, if he really is your friend, what's 3 ships, right? Like, this guy's loaded. He doesn't need this. Like, he should be willing to help you out. So this is a great test, to be honest. Like, it's pretty.
So what's the plan though? What's Jorah saying they should do?
They're gonna change course, go to the slave cities,
Slaver's Bay.
Slaver's Bay.
So Jorah hasn't learned his lesson. Jorah literally got exiled for selling slavers, and he's like, "Hey, I got an idea. Got a great idea.
Let's go get some slaves."
You know the thing that's not legal in Westeros? That's what we're gonna win Westeros with.
He needs
slaves.
to do it, man. She needs to do it.
Yeah, I agree. It's not this is a good idea. I think it's just a little funny how Jorah like got in trouble for being the slaver, and he's like, back to slavers.
Even if it was like a fake course, like, hey, let's just kind of travel in that direction to see, 1, will the captain steer the ships in that direction?
Sure, yeah.
2, are Whitebeard and what's his name going to fight us on it? And then, like, all right, maybe we can get lucky. Because this Dana's like, well, what are you talking about? Like, all right, we'll get the story of the Unsullied. Like, first off, she's like, what? These fat people with spikes on their heads? Like, they can't fight. Like, they're not going to win me anything. And we find out the Unsullied were actually badasses, like the true Unsullied.
Yeah, those are just the castle guard ones. They got posh jobs. Like, they're
soft work, and because they're eunuchs, they don't have any vices except for eating, which does make sense. Like, you can still do drugs and stuff without your balls, but whatever. Drink alcohol, but
they're probably just not allowed to do those things.
Sure, but are they allowed to just stuff their face? Like, if they're not allowed to do those things, keep your warriors in check. But whatever, doesn't matter. He tells them this badass story, which is just basically a ripoff at a 0 for the
300.
The Spartan army.
300.
Right.
Yeah. That's exactly what I thought was doing.
3,000 dudes, and they held off.
There's even the part where it's like the arrows fell like rain, right? That's like straight out.
Yeah, I mean, and they're just like running into them in like a shield.
Yes, interlocking shield walls.
And then they just mow them down. 600 died to their 12,000.
There was 600 left.
Yeah.
Out of 3,000. So 2,400 died. But yeah, they took out 12,000 of the 20,000 Dothraki fighters.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And the Dothraki all rode by the next day, chopped off their braids, and
just straight surrendered to these dudes.
So 600 people still wear a braid on their spear. I'm sure the spear's been passed down, like, I guess, or something.
Yeah, the city was Qohor, right? And what they say is ever since then, Qohor has been basically strictly manned by these Unsullied type
with
warriors,
braids.
And they still carry. It makes me think of the rabbit. What are tall heart boys that got fucked up by Theon?
Wild hairs.
Yeah. Riding around with rabbit tails on their rabbit skins. It's basically these guys.
All right. She's like, all right, cool. Unsullied, maybe they can fight and help me. How am I going to pay for them? And he's like, here's another test. We're going to use all of Illyrio's goods to pay for them.
3 ships. Yeah. Full of shit.
Three
loaded,
ships of
baby.
tigers.
Yeah.
Tiger skins. And she's like, well, that's rude. You don't do that to a friend. And he's like, if he's actually a friend and he's for your cause, he won't mind losing some tiger skins to help you on your path to glory.
Yeah, what a better way to spend 3 ships worth of trade goods than to buy an army for this person that I love.
What's the point of wealthy friends if you can't spend their money for them? It's pretty
Yeah,
much
like,
what he says.
Which again, we know Jorah had money troubles earlier, right? When he had the wealthy wife, he's just not a good financial advisor, Jorah.
And she's like, well, is this way going to be dangerous? Like, there's people out there that want to kill me. And he's like, no more dangerous than a kraken coming out of sea and dragging us to the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, there's dangers out here.
Either way, yeah. 6 in one, half dozen in the other. Doesn't really matter.
As she gets all fired up about this, she's like, all right, let's get it. Like, we're changing the heading now. She gets up, runs naked to the dresser.
Puts on some pants, tells Jorah, give me my vest, give me my shirt, and he gets excited, grabs her, kisses her. She's like, oh, fuck. She doesn't seem to hate it, though. Like, her mouth opens for it, and she says she doesn't know how long it lasts. His mouth is sweet.
This was the first one where it was like, oh, now people are finally talking. People have been talking about George writing these scenes. Now here we're seeing the first, like, real bad one, I think.
The weirdest part for B was that, all right, he went up and kissed her, definitely violated her space. and then like his tongue is just like happens to get into her mouth. Like it wasn't just like a sweet peck.
Yeah.
He went for it all.
And then at one point she says like she covers her nipples, she covers her chest before her nipples could like give her away.
Yeah.
Which means like she's like excited by it, right? So I don't know, like
I mean, is it cold? Is there a draft? Is there a windy draft that could
she's too young to consent. Doesn't matter what she thinks. Jorah's a creep, right? That's the answer. Weird.
Yeah.
He goes all out. He's like, I love you. I love you. I love you. Let me ride your dragon. Like, I'll be your husband. I love you so much.
I'll be one of your two husbands to ride the dragon.
Yeah, you're gonna need somebody else to ride a dragon. I like how that's one of his arguments. Like, you got them empty dragons. Like, somebody's gonna need to be on that, right? Why not me?
I'm surprised he didn't have another answer. Like, all right, I'll be your husband, and then we'll find you like this person that really like wants to be your brother, and he will ride it too. Like, he won't be your husband. Like, I'm surprised he's kind of open to like, okay, you can have two husbands.
If I have to share you, that's fine.
What I think is weird and kind of telling is like, I think it kind of shows that he knows that what she went through with the warlocks, like, affected her, and that she's been thinking about it a lot, right? Because he basically uses that argument to convince her that these people are the betrayers. Like, hey, you've been looking for these betrayers ever since the warlocks told you about it.
Yeah.
Hey, look, it's them. And she's like, hey, you've been wondering what 3 heads of the dragon means. It means me, right? Like, whether he's right on either of these or not, he's like using me. What
that one doesn't even make sense. He doesn't even make it make sense.
I don't know if he thinks it means him. I think it means I can help you get there.
Yeah, it's still
what
like a huge stretch.
I don't think he's saying he's gotta be like the only way the dragon's gonna have 3 heads is if she marries him.
Well, she says you've been wondering what that means, and I know what it means now. I just thought of it. What, like, it's the three dragon riders, like Aegon and his sisters.
But again, I don't think it means that he needs to be the husband. He wants to be the husband.
Sure, but that's what he's saying to her. He's saying like, hey, I can help you with this.
Right. Well, yeah, he's trying to make a case for it. He's like, I'm the one that loves you.
One out of the 2, yeah.
My point is, I think that he knows that like that those visions are like affecting her, and it's something she thinks about a lot, and he's using that as like a weakness to like manipulate her.
Agreed.
Like he does it in both these things.
He knows what he's doing.
In a creepy way, yeah.
Yeah, this is like he definitely
he's grooming her. Isn't this called grooming?
Grooming.
Yeah. He crossed the line to like super creepy. This one, like, up until now, you guys have been kind of talking about it, and I've even been defending him for sure earlier on, but now like this is in defense. He's gone. This is too much. Yeah,
I will say I think there's people in the fandom who like them, like ship it.
If you were talking like on a sitcom TV show, that they would start talking like Jorah and Dany forever type stuff.
Well, I don't want to get too much into that because I don't know what happens with their relationship.
I'm just saying, like, the argument would be, hey, in these times you have 14-year-old girls getting married off to older guys all the time. In terms of that happening, this is not a bad couple.
Yeah.
Is I think like the argument, right?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be the craziest storyline in this story if a 14-year-old girl is married off to who Jorah would be the lord of a land.
Exactly. Yeah, he's exiled, but yeah, exactly. So, I think people use that to justify it, right? Not that it's good, but
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could make that point for sure. Like, how old Sansa?
It is weird. I feel weird saying it, but like sometimes you have to like look past some of the age stuff when you read books like this, just because it's less of a thing, and it's just like, yes, it can still be creepy, and Jorah can still be creepy, but like in context, it's not as creepy for everyone else.
That barrier has already been broken down. They've literally betrothed a baby. Didn't they betroth the baby?
They did, yeah. Lannister.
But he was betrothed. It was a baby, like literally an infant, like less than a year old, but it was to a 12-year-old.
Yeah, right. I'm just saying, like, Sansa's been betrothed. Like, it just happens that Joffrey was like of same
but
age.
Like Lysa, right? She was like
Lysa was betrothed to old man Jon Arryn.
Exactly.
Who was 50.
Yeah, older than her dad. I don't remember exactly how old she was. She might not have been like under 18, right? But again, back then, like in Game of Thrones, there's no 18 is the number that you have to be older than. There's no number. So it's kind of just the age gap is what makes it weird.
No limits.
That's not what I'm saying. But
all rules are off.
That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying we can't just like not like try and not talk about things just because there's a huge age gap, or else we're just going to be ignoring a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I know it's still creepy, but we got to ignore it.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not creepy, but
and acknowledge it. That's the word I was looking
yeah,
for.
yeah.
There's a couple times in this chapter that Dany is kind of title hungry, similar to when Stannis, the last time we've heard Stannis kind of defend his titles, like he was called your lord a couple times. He's like, your grace, or like, I'm a king type of stuff. And she hops on Viserys being a king, even though he never actually ruled, which I think is kind of weird.
Yeah, I call BS on that one.
I feel like we haven't heard her jump on like he was King Viserys.
I feel like some of it was her trying to rebuke Jorah's advances.
For sure, that's the second one. She's trying to take back power. Like, I'm in charge.
Yeah,
she'll slow your fucking roll, dude.
Yeah,
but the first one was talking to Whitebeard.
Yeah.
Like she kind of snapped at him, like he's King Viserys to you, and he. Was he? Sure, whatever. It's the first that she ever really like title snapped.
I think it was just a little bit of put some respect on his name.
Yeah, for sure. I guess, but it's the first time.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So, and then I agree. The second one was definitely like, I'm your queen, not your second wife or your third wife to be. Back up, bitch.
So overall, not a ton happened in this chapter. I mean, some interesting like conversations. We haven't really had any conversations with Whitebeard or Belwas before. They kind of just showed up, had a short conversation, and left at the end of the last time we saw him.
Yeah.
So we hear him here, and then we also get like a lot of information about like Rhaegar. Like we didn't really know too much about Rhaegar before. I feel like we'd probably learn more about him in this chapter than any other chapter so far. So that's what I take away from it.
That's where I was at too. Exactly. It was cool to get some history on some of these plot points we've been hearing about for a while. So I liked it overall.
What do you think the next step of the path is? Do you think after this weird encounter, she continues to go up and change course?
Yeah. I think they still got to try and do that. I hope that they do. I hope it works. I hope they get back on land. Kind of want to see him fight some Dothrakis. Don't know if it's going to happen though.
What about Jorah's marriage proposal?
Jorah, I hope that goes nowhere. Like, I mean, I feel like that was pretty obvious for a while there.
So again, kind of on the whole, like we accepted sometimes more than others. Like not that I'm saying we ever accepted it, but like by the end of book one, like we were like, yeah, Drogo's not that bad of a guy. And he was what, like 30, 35 warlord.
Yeah, but it definitely wasn't as creepy as this dude, the way this dude's going about it.
If you go back and reread chapter Dany's second chapter of Game of Thrones, the end of it is very creepy. Like he like rapes her basically. She's on board by the end of it, but she's on board by pretty much in this chapter too. So like,
I don't know, man.
I mean, she was definitely sold she was sold into marriage.
She didn't have a choice.
Like,
yeah, and I don't know how that one goes either. I'm just saying it's awkward. So yeah, hopefully that doesn't work out. The dragons are going to keep getting bigger. I feel like Nelson likes Belwas too much for him to be a spy or a double agent. So hopefully he's not. But who knows? Other than that, I mean, I don't like they're on a boat currently. I don't really have good plans. I really do think Illyrio might be setting a trap, though. I will say that much. He seems shiesty. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, we at least know that he was plotting with Varys.
Yeah.
So
who knows? But
all right,
that's really about it. Like I said, I think maybe I don't know. I want to say they're good dudes, but if they're leading her into a trap, they're not good dudes. So I don't know.
Game of Thrones is all about gray characters.
Yeah.
Not all good, not all bad.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. It feels like exactly. That's why it's hard
George
to...
just crossed that line today into the little dark, more dark than light.
Yeah. Yeah, he's gone.
Who's next? I didn't see it.
Bran.
Young Wolf.
He's out on his own. He just saw Winterfell burn. Be interesting.
All right, we'll see Kyle in the next one. We'll see the rest of you guys in the spoiler section. Thanks for listening. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe.
Later, nerds.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Bye, Kyle. Get the hell out of here.
And now, on to the spoiler section for Dany 1. Jeff, any hot takes?
All right, I got 3 notes that aren't Whitebeard is, what's his name?
Let's start with that. We're never going to, I don't think it's that many chapters. I think it's one of the 2 or 3 more chapters till we find out that he's Barristan.
Yeah.
We're never going to make it. I'm amazed that we didn't spoil it already.
I'm not going to spoil it.
Every single time in my notes I want to write down Arstan, I wrote Barristan.
Yeah.
And I was so sure if I ever tried to say Arstan during the chapter, I would say Barristan.
I just call him Whitebeard.
If you notice, I'll probably edit it out, but anytime I went to talk about him, I was like, Whitebeard. Like I stopped myself, caught myself, and made sure I called him Whitebeard.
I don't think it's as bad as you think, because I don't think it was even that bad, but I write in my notes Whitebeard. No, I think that's not one that I would spoil, because I know that at some point it's going to be like...
Arstan just sounds like Barristan. It's Bear Arstan, recently. Barristan.
Yeah, that's why I just write down Whitebeard, because one, I don't know how to, like, Arstan, I don't know. It's
like, I think
name.
when Dany says, like, you lied to me, he's like, I never lied. You asked me what I was called, and I was called Arstan by, like, my little brother who couldn't say bees when he was a baby. Like, he says something like that. Like, that was my nickname or something. Like, somebody actually called me that, or it was my dad's name or something.
So I'm curious to this, because, like, Barristan, like, how does he get confronted with who are you? Like, does she just come out and say, like, all right, enough of this bullshit. Like, tell me who you are. Like, what happens?
He pops off and kills. It's when they're in
He goes like on the Second Sons and kills them all with a stick, and it's like, all right, like he actually like fights multiple people, doesn't he?
So what happens is there's one of the sellsword company leaders. It's called the Titan's Bastard. I think he's the guy in the show who Dario like brings in the two guys' heads. It's one of those, like the guy who's the dick when he meets with Dany. I think that's the Titan's Bastard. I think what happens is he escapes, like during the young guy battle, he escapes. And then when they go to take over Meereen, and I can't believe that his identity goes this long, but for some reason I think it does. He actually goes this long before he's found out. And they're outside Meereen, and there's like basically a really long line of a procession of all like the slaves that Dany is keeping from city to city, right? And she hears that there's a bunch of sick people, and she's gonna go ride through and like make sure all the sick people are doing well, and like, you know what I mean, like go and like actually greet her people. And she brings Arstan with her, I think. And the Titan's Bastard had been like hiding among the ranks the whole time. He attacks her, and Barristan like fucks her up, but in doing so, he reveals himself somehow. Are you looking it up?
Yeah, I am.
Am I right?
I just got to the page.
Oh, yeah, I'm right. So I was right. Is Miro the Titan's Bastard? Yeah. So I was right. Are you looking at the Barristan wiki?
Okay.
If you go to Storm of Swords, go to where it says, it's the 5th paragraph. Daenerys later decided that she would ride out amongst her people. She's attacked by Miro, the former commander of the Second Sons, and Barristan easily dispatches him. The sellsword falls into the water, and the freedmen fall on his body. Daenerys wishes Barristan be knighted in gratitude, but both Barristan and Jorah refuse at the same time. Jorah, highly suspicious, questions how an old squire with a stick could have been capable of killing Miro, the Titan's Bastard, and asks Barristan who he is, to which Barristan replies, a better knight than you, sir.
Wow.
He begs forgiveness for withholding the truth. Jorah recognizes Barristan and informs Daenerys who he is.
I mean, it's stupid that it took Jorah that long to figure out who he was.
It's what you always say, though. There's no photo ID. Like, yes, Barristan's famous, but like, how would he really know him?
But he's got to be a little bit, he's already on edge of like, this guy knows way too much. Why wouldn't he continue to try to ask prying questions to see like, because I don't know, I was just reading through that thing, and it looked like there might be a quote where Barristan's going to come out and say like he might still be serving in King's Landing if it wasn't for the boy king. I don't know if that's true. I just was reading through the wiki thing.
He eventually tells Dany that, yeah, like
that's kind of a bigger Oh, is that not till he?
Yeah, after Jorah goes to knight him. Yep.
Oh, well then that point is irrelevant. But
did you catch? So here's a quote with the Barristan thing. This is when Jorah is trying to convince Dany that he's false, that he's lied to her.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, if you keep trusting in every like schemer and liar that you come across, you're going to end up like your brother. And she says, Belwas couldn't scheme his way to breakfast. And what lies has Arstan Whitebeard told me? He's not what he pretends to be. He speaks to you more boldly than any squire would dare. He spoke frankly at my command. He knew my brother. A great many men knew your brother, your grace. In Westeros, the Lord Commander of the King's Guard sits on the small council and serves the king with his wits as well as his steel.
Yeah, but he said that to be like...
Then
like,
I should be... I'm your queen's guard.
Yeah, like...
Take
not
my
that,
counsel. But
yeah.
it literally right on the back of him saying he's not who he's supposed to be. The Lord Commander sits on the council. It's Barristan.
Yeah.
Barristan's the Lord Commander.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely there for me and you. Do you think there's no shot Kyle's going to get it? Like,
No way.
Like, it's not that easy. It's truly not. And Kyle's like, this is one of those, like, now you're like, oh my God, it's Barristan.
And the thing why it's hard for Jorah too is Jorah doesn't know he was dismissed, I don't think. Like, they don't get all that news. They basically know Robert and Ned are dead. That's pretty much it. They don't know. Like, Jorah probably assumes Barristan's still in the Kingsguard. Like, why would he think any differently? If he thought that Barristan was dismissed, then yes, maybe he sees through this.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, you don't see what you're not looking for type thing.
Right. Yeah, I don't hold it against Kyle for not finding. It's weird that he hasn't, like, guessed. Like, he has brought up before, like, where is Barristan?
Yeah, that's true.
We might be at the point now where it's been so long ago that he might have forgotten that Barristan's out and about, which I think when I read it the first time, I was like, and I don't know, I saw the show, right? So I know that maybe I didn't even know that Barristan was Arstan, like, when I was reading it, you know? So I don't know.
Because I don't think he pretends at all in the show. He doesn't pretend to be. He shows up
right,
and he's like, I'm
Barristan. Yeah. But he does kill scorpion-looking thing that I guess is a Manticore.
Yeah, you're right. That's the first time he shows up.
So I probably forgot, like, Dan and Dan.
What's interesting is that I wonder the next time Kyle brings up Barristan, right? Like,
I don't think he's going to. I think he's just going to.
I think he has recently. Like, I think, like, even in this book, I think he did with Kat. Like, in the Kat chapter, I think he was like, oh, where's Barristan?
No, definitely not. He hasn't asked about Barristan, and I'm going to say, I don't know, 2/3 of the way through the last book.
I disagree. Let's say I'm right. You might be right, but let's say I'm right. Say he thinks of Barristan again. Do you think, if he does, like, say in the next Cat chapter, Rob comes back and he's like, oh, you know what? It'd be cool if Barristan showed up with Rob. Do you think now that we have this, like, Whitebeard character introduced, that helps him put, you know, like, oh, wait a minute, maybe that's...
I don't. No, I don't.
Okay.
I think he still thinks he's in Westerosi. Like, I think he thinks it way more likely that he's going to, like, Stannis than anywhere else. Like, because I think he would think, like, oh, Barristan is honorable, he's a good knight, he's going to go to who actually should be king.
Yeah.
So he's going to Stannis. I think that's what he would think more than even, like, I'm reminded of Barristan. Oh, wait, this Whitebeard. Like, I don't think he's going to put two and two together. It's also weird, like, why doesn't he just carry I guess because he threw his sword down. Is that the only reason he has a stick? Because he threw his sword down?
He doesn't want to carry a sword because he doesn't want people to know who he is. That's why he doesn't have a sword. He's in disguise.
I mean, there's so many people that carry swords, though. Yeah,
but, like, one of the things Danny says, he doesn't even have a sword. Like, it does help him in disguise.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay. All right, so anything else we want to talk about? Any just major things? She thinks about Quaithe being, or Quaithe being an enemy. I don't know. Quaithe is weird.
Yeah, we still don't know shit about Quaithe.
Quaithe is weird, for sure.
The two other things I have was Illyrio and Rhaegar. Those are my two notes, just for us to talk about, like, what's Illyrio actually up to, and let's go over the Rhaegar. So,
all right, let me get through my little... I don't think any of mine are as big as them, so I just took note of a lady's favor not around his arm. Not for the Jorah thing, but, like, the Rhaegar of it all. Isn't it very similar to him? Like, doesn't...
Well, he gives Lyanna...
He gives his favor?
Lyanna, yeah. It's like once you win the whole thing, you get to pick one lady as, like, the queen of beauty, and that's what he does with Lyanna, yeah.
It was just, I don't know, just curious to me, the other way around.
While we're on, like, the Lyanna topic, I'll give a shout out. I don't know, I guess it's not really related to Lyanna, but it's along those lines. Some people on the Discord were talking recently. There was somebody posted an interesting theory about Ashara being married to Howland. I don't know if you read that. Some people posted it in the spoilers.
I saw the I didn't read the post, but
yeah, I think it was like Ashara Dane is married to Howland, and she is Jojen and Mira's mom, or one of their moms, or I don't remember the whole thing, but it was definitely an interesting little thing, because I'm getting too off topic. If you're interested in that, you can either just check out the Reddit post. If you just Google that, I'm sure you'll find it, or join the Discord and look at it. But the one thing I wanted to ask you was, there was a part there where I went back and read the quote from Ned's chapter, and you gave me, like, a face like I feel like you were thinking I was spoiling stuff. But I was just reading a quote out of Ned's...
No, I think I had a text that I was reading. Okay. I didn't think anything of it.
Because there was a lot of Lyanna in that dream. And I feel like...
Yeah.
One thing Kyle doesn't ask about ever is Jon's mom. And the only other time we hear, at least I have in my notes, that we actually get a mention of Arthur Dane is when Kat calls out Ned for Ashara being Jon's mom. And I didn't want to bring that up, because just Then he's like, Ashara and the brother of Arthur. I didn't want to bring that up just because Kyle doesn't think about it, so I don't want to put it in his mind. But I feel like I was kind of doing that a little bit with rereading the Arthur Dane. It's interesting. It's good that Kyle at least asked about that kind of stuff, though. It shows that he's like asking the right questions. How does he? It's kind of interesting to me. Like, how does he realize that Arthur is a character to ask about? How many characters' names do I say that he doesn't say? Wait, can you go back and read a quote about that guy? But Arthur. He does, and he's an interesting dude.
I mean, just because it's like it's a name that has a nickname too, so like it's one of those like, all right, they brought up this name, why would they bring up this name type of thing? Like, tell me again, just give me the background on like, because he's probably trying to piece himself together. He's like, all right, they mentioned it again. I have no clue of the Dane family or anything like that. Like, give me everything I have on this guy so I can try formulate a hypothesis. I think that's what he's really doing.
And the other question I wanted to ask you was. There was the part where there was a part there where I was connecting dots towards the end of the chapter between like Jorah, Illyrio, Varys. Was I giving Kyle too much there? Again, I didn't spoil anything, but I was connecting dots for him.
No, because again, I think that's part of what we do with Kyle is to let him know, like, hey, remember Illyrio was, and I even said it too, like, remember Illyrio? We at least know he was messing around with Varys. And I think that's, as long as we're telling him stuff that he should already know.
Well,
like,
it's also stuff that I never tell him anything that he hasn't said before, too, right? Like, I would never tell him that it was Varys and Illyrio if he didn't already say that.
If he wasn't like, oh, that's Illyrio, and you're like, yeah, that is. Like, fine. I think that's fine, too, because, again, that's not...
He's right.
If you read closely enough, it's not a secret, right?
What I was wondering was, like, so say he says in the next Dany chapter, oh, this is Barristan. Like, what do we do? Like, do we say, oh, that's interesting? Like, maybe. Like, how do we not say, oh, you're right? You know what I mean?
I think it's something that we'd want to be like, oh, why would you think that? That's interesting.
Our faces would give it away for sure.
Our faces would, and if he's like, I know, and be like, all right, you know. And then, like, we can edit that out to, like, you edit to be like, Kyle, oh, that's Barristan. And you'd be like, oh, why do you think that? And then, like, okay, fine. Like, you know, like we can do that like off screen, like, all right, you know, and then we'll wait till he actually gets said baby to be like, all right, Kyle said this back then.
Yeah, wait, like, props to Kyle, yeah. Okay, so last two things I had was,
I have two more. So he says, or Dany says that Jorah's mouth is sweet on the kiss.
Yep, sweet kiss, Jorah.
And his mouth is sweet. So it kind of goes into my next thing, which he says, like, no one will be half as true as him. He's half as true already. So, like, really, he's already a liar. So his mouth is sweet because he's a liar. And
again, it's one of those things where I'm going to take Jorah's side on this one. Like, yes, he did wrong by her, but I'm not going to call it a betrayal. Like, if anything, he betrayed Robert. Like, a betrayal is when you say you're on one person's side and then you flip sides. That's a betrayal to me. And what he did was he said he's on Robert's side and he flipped sides to Dany. So yes, he was on the wrong side at the start, but he didn't betray Dany the way I see it.
This is how I see it. He didn't lie to her, but he's now omitting the truth to her.
He's definitely being very selective, yes. What's interesting too, and I didn't know this until we did that little quick research on Barristan. Barristan knows this whole time
that Jorah was informant. Yeah, correct. Because he was on the council, right? And they were like, oh, we have... Yeah,
in the show what happens is Barristan gets a letter that's his pardon. And that's when he's like, oh shit. This is pardon because he was a spy, but Barristan didn't actually know. Because in the show, Barristan doesn't sit on the council, but here, even in Jorah says it in the quote: "Lord Commander sits on the council, knows all this shit. He was there hearing the info from Jorah."
Yeah, no, for sure. And when Barristan outs himself, does he out Jorah?
They both kind of like out Barristan at the same time because she's like, "Wow, you're so great. I want you to be knighted," and Jorah refuses to knight Barristan, and Barristan refuses to be knighted. A, because he's already a knight, and because he doesn't think Jorah is, like, honorable. So he's like, I am already a knight. I'm the King's Guard, blah, 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 blah. And this guy
you're a traitor.
Is a traitor. Exactly, yeah. He does it all at once.
Does she send them off then? Does she send both of them? Well, how does it go?
She makes
them... both of them to fuck off?
I think she made... The order, yeah, my order might be backwards here, but I think she then makes them both go through the sewers. Like, in a suicide mission to attack Marine, they go in through the sewers.
And survive?
Yeah, they survive. But I think she's like, yep, you guys are on the suicide mission. Fuck you both. I don't care. You lied to me and you betrayed, you were false to me the whole time and you lied to me at the beginning. So go in there.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And then what? Jorah lies? Does Jorah lie again? And she Does she kick him off? Does she kick him away, or are we not even there yet? Because she's in the field of Dothraki right now. We don't even know where she's going to be.
He definitely gets kicked away after that because he ends up with Tyrion. Him and Tyrion are captured by the slavers outside Meereen right now.
Yeah, it's been a while to think that far ahead.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and he knows that Jorah was an informant too, right? He was openly saying that tonight, so it's not like he doesn't know.
What do you mean?
Kyle knows that Jorah is an informant.
Yeah. Kyle knows. Yeah, we know that because when Varys got that word, he's like, here's what we heard from Jorah.
Right.
Which again, like most people probably when you read book one, you don't put together.
You're going to read over that name. Yeah. Right. Exactly. But Kyle
knows. Yeah.
Knows. Which again, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help him understand book one better.
It is interesting. If there is anyone that listens to our podcast that is on our first read through, they do get a slightly different experience than most people because we're not.
But it's
a
better experience. You don't want to have to read these books twice to figure out what happened once. Like these books are so big.
I don't know. Like this is your first reread.
Correct.
You have to admit it's almost like reading it first. It's not the same experience.
It gives you a different perspective for sure.
It's a completely different perspective, and you are getting like I don't know. I think a reread of these books is better than the first read of most books. So, but that's obvious, or we won't be doing a podcast on it.
Yeah. All right. Give me your notes.
So this is an open, like I asked discussion points, like Illyrio. What's Illyrio up to? Let's think about it. I have an idea. What happens if Dany goes to Pentos without going to Astapor?
He marries her.
2.
Why not himself?
Because there's somebody else.
Fake guy. Fagon.
Or a real Aegon, depending on your stance. Yeah, exactly. Fagon. That's why he wants her back, in my mind. That's why he wants...
You're right.
Perfect.
I agree with you. He has Fagon, right?
Yeah, he's about to send Fagon. I don't know exactly where Fagon is. He might not... Like, Fagon might not be with him, but he knows where Fagon is, and he's, like, off with Jon Con or whatever.
I mean, it even makes sense timeline-wise if we think of when we get introduced to Fagon. Like, he could be with Illyrio now or working his way over there while Dany is like, oh shit, wait, let me turn the Slaver's Bay quick. And then they're like, oh shit, Aegon, you gotta go win her now, basically.
Yeah. So the thing is, we don't know where he is. Like, we don't, like, yes, Illyrio has control of them, but they're probably not with him, right? Like, they're not even with him when Tyrion shows up. He sends Tyrion, like, meet them on the river. Like, they're going...
Right. Well, I'm saying, by the time Tyrion gets there, Illyrio was probably like, hey, you need to go tell her you're going to marry her, and then you bring her back, type of thing.
I think that's part of Tyrion's plan. Tyrion's plan is like, oh, let's get these people met up. And I think by the time Tyrion gets there, Illyrio's like, she's fucking around. We don't know what the fuck she's doing. She went off script. You're on your own now. Aegon. Yeah. But I'm guessing at this point, that's his plan. Like, if he wants her back, he wants her to marry her too.
Why does he care so much?
So the theory is that if Fagon is Fagon, if he's fake, it's because Illyrio was married to a Blackfire. Illyrio at one point tells Tyrion that the Blackfires, right? So there was a Blackfire rebellion, house split. Yeah.
And the second Sons was run by Blackfire, right? Or the Golden Company?
The Golden Company, exactly.
The Golden Company?
Yeah. They were founded as the army for the right. Yeah, so there was 2 bastards, Daemon Blackfire and Bittersteel. Bittersteel is what he takes his last name. They're half-brothers, and so is Bloodraven. They're all half-brothers with each other. Daemon and Bittersteel go across to Essos to start the rebellion. Bloodraven stays there on the good, and that's the first Blackfire rebellion. Illyrio tells Tyrion at one point that the Blackfire, the Blackfire line has ended through the male line. And people think it's really weird that he specifies through the male line, which basically insinuates that it's not ended through the female line. And then he goes weird. He says like, "Oh, I love this woman, Sarah. She had, I think he says that the woman he loved had purple eyes. He said that he keeps her hand like in a box. Like I don't know if you remember this. He actually like has her hand.
Yeah.
So people think that he married
Sarah Blackfire.
Exactly, a Blackfire woman, and that Jon Con, that young Griff, Fagon is his son. A Blackfire. And
he just wants to see the Blackfires take the throne?
Exactly. Well, he doesn't care. He just wants his kid to take the throne. And let's rejoin the houses. My thinking right now is what Illyrio should be thinking is the best way to not have the Targaryen Blackfire rebellion. Like, right now there's 2 people who are trying to get the throne. One a Blackfire, one a Targaryen. Neither of them have a great shot, right? But if either of them does get it, then there's going to be a fight with the other one. So let's get them on the same side. Then there's not even a Blackfire versus Targaryen anymore. It's just the same side.
I mean, but Aegon was brought up thinking he was Targaryen, right? So it's like not like he's It's not like he's has this mindset that I'm a Blackfire and I've been screwed out of the throne type of thing.
Sure, but that doesn't matter. He shows up and Illyrio is like, hey, you're a legit Targaryen. Marry your legit Targaryen aunt. That's what Targaryens do anyway, right? Because if he's supposed to be Rhaegar's son, then Dany's his aunt. So just marry each other, seal up the...
Yeah. Or if you are Rhaegar's son, you're actually the heir. So he'd want the...
And if you want dragon rider kid, like Dany has a dragon. If you want to ride a dragon, let's marry that lady. You know what I mean? Like, you still want the dragon.
All right, can we get the next one? But I agree with you. I do agree with you.
So not again, to the point like that Kyle's thinking that if you're not like have the exact same mindset as me, then you're against me. Well, that's not true. Like Illyrio, yes, isn't like I want Dany to succeed. Illyrio is like I want me to succeed. But a lot of the times, like I wanting me to succeed also means I want you to succeed.
I want because of this.
Yeah, for me to succeed, you also have to succeed type thing. Yeah, so it's not always like me looking out for myself isn't bad on you.
You lose, so I win.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yes, he wants to use her, but in using her, he would elevate her. And the last one is like Rhaegar. So I'm interested. I'm kind of glad Kyle didn't talk about it because it's one of those things that, again, I think it'd be kind of hard to talk around because how much does he know about Rhaegar at this point? I don't think much. Pretty much he knows that Rhaegar raped and killed Lyanna. Or, yeah, that's pretty much what he knows. He was involved in that bit of the rebellion, the bad bit.
Right.
What we hear here is he wasn't really a warrior, that he was like a really bookish.
Yeah.
They joked that his mom swallowed a candle.
It's weird to me because I don't remember the story. What did he read that he was like, I guess I need to become a fighter?
So let's think about House of the Dragon now.
He's got a sister and they were going to fight him or like people were just going to fight him for who else was there at that time?
That's not what I'm thinking. I'm thinking there's a prophecy, a song of ice and fire.
Yeah, okay.
When Dany's in the House of the Undying, she sees a vision of Rhaegar holding a baby, of a lady holding a baby,
Sure.
and Rhaegar playing his harp. She says, will you make him a song? And Rhaegar says, he has a song. His is the song of ice and fire.
Yeah, but that wasn't written in a book.
It's something that's supposed to be passed down. So I know you haven't been super involved, but like one of the things that like the super diehard, like Reddit, like all those forums have been all about ever since House of the Dragon is Rhaegar knew about this prophecy. He says the Song of Ice and Fire in the House of the Undying vision.
Well, shouldn't he just know by being the heir? Like, shouldn't Aerys just pass it down?
So that's the thought is, how does it get down, right? It doesn't, there's so many rebellions and it's never like the reason that the House of the Dragon is an interesting show is because it's not just like, oh yeah, Rhaenyra, here, take the throne. You know what I mean? It's never an easy succession in the Target ever. There's never like an easy, hey, you're my daughter, take the throne. No problems, wash your hands of it, right? Like, even like Aegon the Conqueror had two sons, two different wives, Aenys and Maegor. Aenys was the elder, so Aenys took the throne. He had children, but when he died, his brother took the throne from him. So right then, how does this prophecy still around? Aenys should be the one that knows it. He should have told his children. Maegor took over, prophecy's gone.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What happens is Maegor's line doesn't actually continue. Maegor dies without an heir, and Aenys' line ends up coming back to the throne. So it kind of makes sense that maybe it can continue that way. But basically, ever since House of Dragon came out, people like me have been like, it doesn't make sense that it makes it far enough to get to Rhaegar. So what people think is this is Rhaegar finding it. Someone put it down in a book, like one of the Targaryens beforehand.
One Targaryen was like, someone's going to fuck this up.
Exactly.
It needs to be in a writing.
Eventually, there'll be a Targaryen who is bookish and just reads a lot, and he'll find this, and then he'll get this thing going again if it ever gets lost.
Yeah, but don't you think because of that anybody could read it? Like, it's not a maester's job to read every book that's in this library.
Sure. People don't really know. There's a lot of mystery around how this happens, but what I'm saying is this is what people think this is, right? What would make Rhaegar go from being completely like not interested in fighting and interested in music and all this stuff to all of a sudden, I need to be one of the best fighters in the kingdom.
Yeah.
Plus,
all right, tell me the prophecy real quick.
All we know in the books is it's a Song of Ice and Fire.
But it's about Aegon. Rhaegar's not Aegon. So doesn't he just need to raise
None of that is
Aegon?
In the books. Again, that's all House of the Dragon only. But again, a lot of that probably came from George. It's one of the things that we don't have that in books, period. So we don't know what's true, what's made up.
But you know what I mean? Like, if he reads that it's an Aegon, then he doesn't need to fight. He just needs to give birth to an Aegon.
Sure, but I'll tell you how little this is in the books. Like, George was doing interviews before Fire and Blood came out. Before any of the fans had read Fire and Blood, George was doing interviews. And in the interviews, he said, like, yeah, it's weird. Fans have speculated that maybe Aegon took over because he had some visions kind of like Egg's brother had visions, right?
Yes.
No one had really nobody had speculated this. George just said it kind of out of nowhere, right? That's what most people think, that like George was making this up because he was going to plant this, and like he was basically saying like, hey, expect this in Fire and Blood. Then Fire and Blood comes out and there's no hint of that. Never once does it say Aegon had a dream, or there's just nowhere in Fire and Blood.
Aegon the Conqueror.
There's nothing about Targaryens having dreams in Fire and Blood. But again, Fire and Blood.
And Aegon's dream was that Valyria was going to burst, right? So you had to go west.
That was Dany's the Dreamer's dream. That is the one thing that's in Fire and Blood. There was,
okay,
and that's like 4 or 5 generations pre-Aegon. Most people forget that like, yes, the Targaryens left Westeros or left Valyria, but they just chilled on Dragonstone for like probably like 100, 150 years before Aegon took over. They're just a family.
Oh, and then Aegon's dream was, I need to bring all this land together to fight the North.
But that dream, not in Fire and Blood. The dream about them leading, yes, that's in Fire and Blood. Nothing about Aegon's dream. Nothing about any other Targaryen dreams in Fire and Blood. So George dropped this hint. Everyone's like, oh, this is going to be interesting. Then Fire and Blood comes out and it's just not there. But then it's in House of the Dragon. So people are like, what the fuck do we think about this? Then George did an interview where he said, yes, show canon and book canon are different. They're not the same. So it's like, okay, well, you can't take what's in House of the Dragon as truth in the book and vice versa. But like, where did that come from? George basically dropped this in an interview, then it didn't show up in the book, then it showed up in the show. So people think it's probably true. And when you look at stuff like this, like people have wondered about this for forever. This Rhaegar thing, I must be a warrior. That doesn't make any sense. Like, imagine like we had never seen House of the Dragon. We read this chapter. What are we talking about?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Me
like,
and you were like, what the fuck? We have no idea. House of the Dragon sheds a lot of light on this, if that's true.
Well, this is what I was thinking. Like maybe he reads the story of Aegon versus what's her name? Rhaenyra, and he's like, oh shit, like I just had a younger brother. He's gonna grow up one day, and if I'm a bitch, he's gonna be like, I'm taking over now, and I'm not gonna be able to fight him, type of thing.
If you want to go on that, I wasn't a huge. I've seen people talk about this, and I always like to look up like some things about the chapter before we do the podcast. This was something I wasn't going to mention, but because we're talking about Fire and Blood, when Dany throws the meat, she throws it to
Drogon,
the Black Dragon.
Okay.
And Rhaegal.
Yeah, the green. Tries to take it.
Yeah, and in Fire and Blood we have the blacks and the greens, the black dragons and the green dragons, right?
I mean, I wasn't going.
Yeah, is there a connection? I don't know. I will tell you.
Does that mean Belwas is going to be a high tower person? That.
Well, again, if we're saying Illyrio is trying to get Dany over, and we're talking about the Dance of the Dragons, a lot of people think the Dance of the Dragons is 100% a parallel to Fagon and Dany. That's what the Dance of the Dragons is those two are the ones. Again, there's not as many dragons, but if there's a parallel between the dance and modern times, it's that. Right, and we already talked about Fagon and Dany without even bringing that up. I don't think that the Drogon and Rhaegal thing is a nod to that. I'm not sure. Yeah, one of the things I can definitely tell, because again, I take notes and I'm a crazy person. George is definitely starting to figure history out. Right, in the past 3 chapters, he's mentioned Jaehaerys the Conciliator 2 or 3 times. He's mentioned Baelon the Blessed 2 or 3 times. Like these are names we've never heard before. And we're starting to get like mentioned a lot, which in my mind means
he started writing Fire.
Maybe he started writing Fire and Blood, but he's at least got an outline of like when major events are happening.
The family tree, personalities.
And Jaehaerys, the one that we've heard a few times now, like in this chapter, Arston says that's when Balerion dies. We see
Jaehaerys with no heirs.
He's the old king at the beginning of House of the Dragon, and we see Viserys with Balerion right there. So again, a lot of the stuff that Fire and Blood and House of the Dragon grew out of, George was figuring out around the time he's writing this. So there's definitely a lot of tie-ins.
That makes sense.
That's all I had. Just the whole Rhaegar, I must be a warrior. This was something that stumped fans for a really long time. And pretty much as soon as House of the Dragon came out, consensus, this is him rediscovering the A Song of Ice and Fire prophecy somehow.
Yes. It just doesn't make sense to me why he discovers that prophecy. And I mean, you're saying that it's not written out that Aegon needs to be the warrior. He needs to be that guy, is what he's thinking, right? I need to unite this, and I need to be the one that leads us against the North.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure later, at one point, when Aemond Targaryen starts going crazy, right, and dying, he starts saying something like, "Oh, Rhaegar thought he was the prince, but he realized it was his son." Like at one point, we hear that. We hear Rhaegar thought it was him, and then he realized it was his son. Right. which again, like when you start remembering Prince That Was Promised, like when you tie that into the actual, like what we heard in House of the Dragon, we don't got to dig on it. We're already going too long. Damn, we thought this would be a short one.
Well, we dived into this.
The brand one will definitely be a short one, right?
Yeah, I don't know what happens.
I think it starts off with summer for the first few pages, so normally that goes pretty quick. Tell you what, though, if you've been working out through our podcast, you've been having some long ones recently. Yeah, past few, I think, have been over an hour 15. All right, we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for listening. Give us a like, subscribe. Bye-bye.